Right, and welcome to the Tour Files. James, who are we?
We are a summer high.
And this is the first episode of this new series we're doing called the Tour Files, where we're going to tell you the stories, the untold stories, some untold stories of our journey around the US, the UK, and Europe. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. (2018), and we started a headline tour with Say We Can Fly, and in the middle of that we got on the Plain White Tees tour and did the West Coast with the Plain White Tees, and then we hopped off of that tour and went back on our headline tour the entire rest of the way back up the US, and that was a crazy time. That was a long tour, and then right after that, not even 2 months later, right, we did another tour again in the middle of December in the snow. And that's when Bronnie from the UK joined us, came over and toured. And that'll make more sense later because we did eventually get on a tour with Bronnie in the UK, and it kind of traded back and forth. But I just kind of want to talk about how crazy our tour with Say We Can Fly and then into the Plain White Tees and coming off of that was. Like, what would you say is your like biggest memory? Not necessarily good or bad, but like your main memory from that tour?
It being just a giant crap show. No, I think
for real though,
it's a time period in my life I will never forget because it's pretty much, it had the biggest highs and lows I've ever had in my life. It was my favorite memories, yet my most anxiety filled, yet my most uncertain. But that was the funnest tour we ever did. At the beginning of the Say We Can Fly and a Summer High run, we had to get a van. So we had a tour manager fly out from Louisiana, where he lives, out to Chicago. He flew out there for the sole purpose of picking up the van, picking up our tour drummer from Chicago. And they get there, and his license is expired and he can't rent it. And keep in mind, the tour starts the next day. So they had to drive all the way 7-8 hours, pick us up, and then go right down to, I think it was Virginia, to start the tour right away. So he couldn't rent it because his license is expired. So he tried to get our drummer, but he was too young at the time. You had to be at least 21. He was still 20, I think. So long story short, we figured this out. The tour was not going to start. And when you have contracts with the booking agents and all these things, like, you can't do that. So I stepped up to the plate. I was in Pittsburgh. I bought a ticket. I got on the phone with our managers, like, what do we do? They're like, get your butt to Chicago if you can. So I bought a ticket within 30 minutes. I'd have a photographer drive me 100 miles an hour to the airport. And I almost missed my flight. They were about to close the door when I got through the security. I had to cry a little bit to get through security. I literally went with a jacket. I just had a jacket and like a phone charger and my clothes. And I didn't sleep the night before because I thought I could sleep while I'm doing all this before tour. So then I fly to Chicago. I have to take an Uber an hour away, get to the van place, to find out that I'm too young to rent the van too. So I can't get the van after all that. So then we begged them. We're like, what do we do? They're like, oh, we can charge you an extra $50 a day or some crazy amount. So they had to charge us extra. I got the van after a 2-hour flight. I'm exhausted. We get in the van, and then Dakota drives, even though his license is expired. We had to drive all the way 8 hours back and then load the whole van up with like 30 minutes to spare and then drive to those venues.
I remember very vividly feeling a lot of days that we'd show up at the venue and I'm like, well, no one's going to be here today. And then people would show up. I'm like, holy shit, people are here. That's awesome. And that was like the thing I was always so grateful for. An independent band at that time to come out and do a full United States tour in small to mid-sized clubs was successful, but it was also very unplanned. And
it was pretty planned it was really planned, but there's so many details that didn't get planned. I mean, people that are watching that don't know, like, just think about, imagine booking 30 plus dates across thousands of miles of land that you've barely been to before, talking to random promoters that you don't
Most
even
places
know.
we'd probably never been to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, so it was really crazy. Like, just think, we booked shows all over the country, and I mean, we would get there
Yeah.
for a VIP, and we'd be like, what are we even gonna do today?
And it was so fun. Like I
Yeah.
had the most fun I've ever had.
Same.
Some of my best memories are on that tour. I'm trying to think of like some of the crazier things that happened, but like
Yeah, like,
just as much fun as it was like learning magic every day. Like I learned how to do so many magic tricks on that tour, especially at the beginning. It was so fun. That's kind of what passed us through the day. Eventually halfway through, like when we played Denver, Say We Can Fly ended up in our van because
yeah, that was after Minnesota, actually.
yeah, so we had a huge run in Minnesota where a couple crew members left and we had to bring in Braden to our bus.
Mhm.
So, or not bus, but van.
Yeah.
And from there it was so fun because we were just hanging out with him every single day, and we kind of became like best friends with him on that tour, just doing magic every day, always hanging out. We were all staying up way too late, which was always fun, you know. So I kind of want to talk about now too so we did this section with Braden, Say We Can Fly. We did this section before, and then in the middle of our tour we cut off and did the West Coast with the Plain White Tees.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was a dream come true. Obviously, I hope all of you know who the Plain White Tees are, and not just from iCarly, okay? My favorite story that Tom from the Plain White Tees has ever told us, I believe he specifically told this to you, James. I could be wrong.
Well, so yeah, I asked him about the show, and he was like, "What show?" And I said, "iCarly," and he's like, "Oh yeah," like it was so minuscule to them, but it was so big till their first
they did not even know what iCarly was when they went in and filmed it because it was the first season, so it hadn't even aired yet. And then it blew up afterwards, and they were really surprised by it. But still, to this day, it's so minuscule to them. But it totally, like, that's how I really knew who they were. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I found out about him. That's why I brought it up. I was like, do you know I found out about you guys from a Nickelodeon show called iCarly? And he's like, oh, and then he was like, what show? And he's like, oh, really? Like, to them, that was like a one-time little press event that they didn't know what was going on. Like, they just
yeah, but those shows were awesome. And I think my favorite show on that entire run was probably in Anaheim at the House of Blues. That was awesome.
That was one of the biggest shows we ever played.
Yeah, and just being backstage at the House of Blues, like feeling for once like a true like rock star for a minute.
Oh, we
weren't like
for the night.
We weren't going into like this like venue bathroom that didn't even have a toilet seat on the toilet. Like they might as well have had a bidet in that place. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, we had like steak dinner there, dude. The catering was like, it was like mashed potatoes and gravy and like caviar. I swear, like, at that point, we had a couple labels coming out to scout us out too, to check our set out in LA, which that was really cool to play the Roxy.
Yeah, I got to play the legendary Roxy Theater. I remember very specifically, while the Plain White Tees were playing, we crawled up the side of the green room and we're peeking at them through this like tiny little hole in the wall.
Remember all those drunk older chicks that were trying to like steal his leather jacket? And Tom's such a nice guy, and he has custom leather jackets. Like, we're talking like one of a kind in the whole world. And there was this one lady that took his jacket and wouldn't give it back, and he was
oh no.
That was like out on the boulevard right out front. But
oh my god, yeah. I was a little far gone that night. I have a hard time remembering a lot. I smashed a TV that night.
Well, yeah, dude, you fell into a TV and smashed. It was one of our friends in LA. It's like a $4,000 high HD LED whatever TV.
And I fell backwards. I was sitting on his bed, and I fell off the bed and smashed his $4,000 TV.
Fell off the bed and fell across the room while standing up. Fell all the way across and smashed into it.
Yeah, good times. I'll pay you back for that, Alex. Still someday. Obviously, I guess moving on from the Plain White Tees section, we went in, finished up the rest of the tour. Of course, I think the tour just became too much at that point, and we had a member depart. We finished the tour. We finished strong, I'd say. And we moved past that. But I'd say, like, what did you think about like the rest of that tour? And I thought personally that it gave me like if it made me feel like a true bond with our fans. Finishing out a tour that was so challenging and had its ups and downs and had so many things happen on it. The fact that our fans showed up every night, we played some of the biggest headline shows we played on that entire tour on the second half. I know you and I were feeling defeated in the moment, but it made me personally feel so good and so hopeful that we could move forward, and no matter what, like, our fans were still out there to support us.
I think the bond between our fans and then the rest of the crew and the rest of the tour, the bands on tour, was the biggest thing that got us through it, I think. And I think that's when we really got closer as friends, because when things get hard, you either kind of end up falling away or going together. And I think that's the strongest bond we ever built as a crew, as other bands, as a band.
I actually think in a way, like, the end of that tour taught me so much, and it's something I'll literally never forget. Basically, we went from that and moved right on. There was no break, and we played another tour in December. What was it, a week-long run, correct?
Yeah, when we ended, I think we got a couple days to go home for Thanksgiving, and then we flew back for tour rehearsals, or I flew back. So
yeah, so we picked right back up and played a December run. We had rented a very crappy, just 15-passenger van because we had spent way too much money on the tour before. So we rent this crappy van, and long story short, it breaks down on this tour. So we're touring with Bronnie from the UK, who was gracious enough to come over and play with us. And we have this like really crappy van.
Remember the noise it was making? The cluck, 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 cluck.
Yeah, basically it looked like the Gluck Gluck Vape 1000. Like, it was like spitting fatter clouds than the dude that owns a vape shop. It was like insane.
It was like H3, dude.
Basically, if you put your mouth on the tailpipe, you would have died in like 2 seconds. It was insane. Our van somehow made it back to Pittsburgh. James and Zach drove it, our photographer and merch guy, great guys. So I can't remember where it was. I think we were in Iowa. And we decided to go out that night because there was like a really cool like tap house. It had like 99 beers on tap. It was insane. Ronnie, Zach, James Ritter, our merch guy, Bronnie's manager, and I don't think anyone else had come with us at this point, but everyone gets like really drunk. But for some reason, our merch guy got like obliterated that night and decided to leave this like tap house early and go back to the hotel, but he forgot a room key. So James shows up in our hotel like 45 minutes before everyone else goes home and finds our merch guy passed out on the floor in front of the door on the floor in the hallway.
I tried to wake him up and I thought he was dead. I had to check his pulse. Dude, I thought he like died, and he was breathing, but I couldn't move him. He was like dead weight. He's skinny, but he was so heavy. And then this 80-year-old security guard walks up, like 80, and he's like, "You got to get him in there." And he's like, "If not, I'm going to call the police and he's going to have to get taken or something." And I was like, "I can't freaking move him, dude." So me and this 80-year-old guy are dragging James across. And granted, we got a good deal in the hotel. It was a big hotel room. The bed was on the other side. So we're dragging him like 20 feet, and his hair is just like dragging, dude.
Oh my god. That has to be my favorite night on that run for sure.
Yes, so after those 2 crazy runs, we had maybe 3 weeks of a break before we had to fly across the world and start a whole nother tour.
Yeah, crazy.